The Russia-linked hacking gang known as Hive, considered one of the most prolific and dangerous, has been shut down.
Hive.
The Hive.
In the sweltering heat of June 2021, a new digital menace emerged. They called themselves Hive. Hive wasn't just another group of hackers. No, they were something far more insidious. They operated what's known as a ransomware-as-a-service operation. Imagine, if you will, a dark marketplace where aspiring criminals could rent the tools, much like one might rent a car for a cross-country road trip. That was Hive's business model. Their methods were as varied as they were effective. Phishing campaigns were a favorite, digital bait cast into the vast ocean of the internet, waiting for an unsuspecting victim to bite. They exploited vulnerabilities in internet-exposed devices, finding cracks in the systems of organizations and slipping through like thieves in the night. And when all else failed, they simply bought stolen credentials, keys to the kingdom sold by other criminals in the dark corners of the web. No sector was safe from Hive's relentless assault. Healthcare organizations, already strained under the weight of a global pandemic, found themselves in the crosshairs. Emergency services, the very lifelines of our communities, were targeted without remorse. It was as if Hive was testing the limits of human decency, pushing to see just how far they could go. The financial impact of their reign of terror was staggering. By November 2022, a mere 17 months after their emergence, Hive had extorted approximately $100 million from over 1,500 companies. They struck fear into the hearts of business owners worldwide. As the sun set on 2022, Hive stood atop a mountain of ill-gotten gains, their power seemingly unassailable. But in the world of cybercrime, fortunes can change in the blink of an eye. And, unbeknownst to Hive, the seeds of their downfall were already being sown. The wheels of justice began to turn in the shadows. In July 2022, while Hive's operators believed themselves untouchable, the FBI quietly infiltrated their servers. It was like slipping into a lion's den unnoticed, a feat of technical prowess and patience. For 6 long months, the FBI watched and waited. They observed Hive's every move, mapping out the intricate web of their operations. This wasn't a simple stakeout. It was a meticulous dissection of a criminal empire's digital nervous system. Every command, every transaction, every whispered communication. The FBI saw it all. As the new year dawned in 2023, the trap was finally sprung. In a coordinated strike that spanned across borders, law enforcement agencies from around the world moved in unison. They seized Hive's infrastructure, cutting off the head of the snake in one fell swoop. The dark websites where Hive conducted their illicit business, their payment sites, their data leak platforms, all went dark. But the FBI didn't stop there. Armed with the knowledge gleaned from their months of surveillance, they turned the tables on the cybercriminals. They distributed over 300 decryption keys to Hive's active victims, and another 1,000 to those who had suffered in the past. It was like handing out skeleton keys to those trapped in Hive's digital prisons, freeing them from the ransomware's grip. The impact was staggering. In one strategic move, law enforcement had prevented approximately $130 million from falling into the hands of these digital extortionists. It was a financial blow that echoed through the cybercriminal underworld. At the time of its disruption, the group had 250 affiliates, a small army of cybercriminals who had been using Hive's tools to spread chaos and fear across the digital landscape. It was a rare victory in the ongoing war against cybercrime, a moment when the good guys struck back against the rising tide of digital threats. But as any seasoned cybersecurity expert would tell you, in this world, victory is often fleeting. You see, their operation was dismantled and their servers were taken over by authorities. But these guys were still at large, and their identities still remain a mystery. What was stopping them from doing it again? Just as the cybersecurity world breathed a collective sigh of relief, thinking the Hive menace was finally behind them, a new shadow emerged on the digital horizon. On October 20th, 2023, whispers began to circulate about a newcomer to the ransomware scene: Hunters International. At first glance, this group seemed eerily familiar. Security researchers noticed striking similarities between their code and that of the now-defunct Hive operation. It was as if a phoenix had risen from Hive's ashes, prompting many to speculate that the old gang had simply donned a new mask. A new ransomware-as-a-service brand named Hunters International has emerged using code used by the Hive ransomware operation, leading to the valid assumption that the old gang has resumed activity under a different flag, one researcher noted, his voice tinged with concern. But Hunters International was quick to deny these allegations. They claimed to be fresh faces on the cybercrime scene, insisting they had merely purchased Hive's source code. "We are a new service," they declared boldly, "who purchased the encryptor source code from the Hive developers." It was a plausible story, but one that left many people on the internet raising their eyebrows. Regardless of their true origins, Hunters International's tactics were clear and frightening. When they infiltrated a system, they left their mark by adding a locked extension to encrypted files, a digital padlock that rendered the data useless to its rightful owners. Alongside this, they would leave a chilling calling card, a contactus.txt file, providing instructions for victims to reach out to the attackers through the shadowy corridors of the Tor network. To showcase their capabilities and strike fear into potential victims, Hunters International set up a data leak site. It was here that they would post stolen information from those who refused to pay, a digital version of a public execution to serve as a warning to others. The first known victim of this new threat was a school in the UK. The details of this attack were sparse, but the implications were clear. Hunters International was not above targeting educational institutions, places meant for learning and growth, not fear and extortion. As October drew to a close, the cybersecurity community found itself facing a familiar yet evolved threat. Hunters International had arrived, and whether they were truly new players or old foes in disguise, one thing was certain. The digital landscape had once again become a more dangerous place. As the crisp winter air settled over Mobile, Alabama, a digital storm was brewing at Austal USA. This wasn't just any company. Austal USA was a shipbuilding giant crafting vessels for the U.S. Navy and Department of Homeland Security. But on that fateful December day, they found themselves navigating treacherous waters they never anticipated. Austal USA, a shipbuilding company and a contractor for the U.S. Department of Defense, DoD, and the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, confirmed that it suffered a cyber attack and is currently investigating the impact of the incident, read the official statement, its words echoing like a warning bell across the cybersecurity world. Hunters International had struck, and they'd aimed high. This wasn't a small-time hit. This was a direct assault on a key player in America's defense industry. The attackers, emboldened by their success, boasted of their Hall compliance documents, financial details, and engineering data. It was as if they'd broken into a vault and were now parading their stolen treasures for all to see. But Austal USA was quick to reassure the public, stating that no personal or classified information had been accessed. It was a small comfort in the face of such a brazen attack, like a captain insisting the ship wasn't sinking while water lapped at their feet. The gravity of the situation wasn't lost on anyone. Soon, the corridors of Austal USA were buzzing with more than just shipbuilders. The FBI and Naval Criminal Investigative Service, NCIS, had arrived, their presence a stark reminder of the attack's significance. These weren't just corporate secrets at stake. This was a matter of national security. As the investigation unfolded, questions hung in the air like a thick fog. How deep did the breach go? What would the attackers do with the stolen information? And, perhaps most chillingly, was this just the beginning? The Austal USA attack marked a turning point. Hunters International had moved beyond small targets, beyond schools and local businesses. They had set their sights on the pillars of national defense, and they had succeeded. The cybersecurity community watched with bated breath, wondering where these digital pirates would strike next, and who among them could stop this rising tide of cyber threats. As cherry blossoms bloomed across Japan, a digital storm was brewing within the walls of Hoya Corporation, a respected name in the optics industry. On an unremarkable April day, the company's digital defenses crumbled under the relentless assault of Hunters International. A recent cyber attack on Hoya Corporation was conducted by the Hunters International ransomware operation, which demanded a $10 million ransom for a file decryptor, and not to release files stolen during the attack. Read the stark announcement that sent shockwaves through the cybersecurity world. The scale of the attack was staggering. Hunters International had allegedly made off with 1.7 million files, a whopping 2 terabytes of data. It was as if they had walked out with an entire library of Hoya's most sensitive information. But the damage wasn't just confined to the digital realm. The attack sank its teeth deep into Hoya's real-world operations, disrupting production lines and throwing order processing into chaos. It was as if someone had tossed a wrench into the finely tuned machinery of the company, bringing its clockwork precision to a grinding halt. What made this attack particularly chilling was Hunters International's ruthless new stance. They introduced a no-negotiation, no-discount policy, a digital version of take it or leave it. It was a brazen move that left Hoya with an impossible choice: pay up or face the consequences. The $10 million ransom hung over Hoya like the sword of Damocles. It wasn't just about getting their files back. It was about preventing their stolen data from being released to the world. In the wrong hands, this information could be devastating, not just for Hoya, but potentially for their clients and partners as well. As news of the attack spread, the cybersecurity community watched with bated breath. Hunters International had upped the ante, showing they weren't afraid to target major corporations and hold them hostage for eye-watering sums. The question on everyone's lips was simple, yet terrifying. Who would be next? The Quorum Cyber Incident Response Team, investigating what seemed like yet another ransomware attack, stumbled upon something entirely new and terrifying. During a recent ransomware incident, a novel malware was identified which was previously unknown to any security vendor. This wasn't just another virus. This was an entirely new beast, one that had managed to stay hidden from every digital defense known to man. They called it Sharp Rhino, a name that would soon become infamous in cybersecurity circles. But what made this malware so special? What set it apart from the countless other digital threats that lurked in the shadows of the internet? The answer lay in its sophistication. Sharp Rhino was like a chameleon, able to blend seamlessly into its digital environment. It arrived disguised as a popular network scanning tool called Angry IP Scanner, taking advantage of a technique called typo squatting. Imagine trying to visit a website, but mistyping the address slightly. That's how Sharp Rhino sneaked onto unsuspecting computers. Once inside, Sharp Rhino dug its claws deep into the system. It used something called an NSIS, Nullsoft Scriptable Installer System Installer, a legitimate tool repurposed for malicious intent. This packed executable made changes to the computer's registry, specifically modifying the Run Update Windows key, ensuring that Sharp Rhino would survive even if the computer was restarted. But the true genius of Sharp Rhino lay in its ability to hide in plain sight. It employed a technique known as living off the land, using a legitimate Windows binary, Microsoft.NEKey.exe, to execute its malicious code. It is a PowerShell script that compiles code and loads the compiled binary into memory, a form of fileless malware. In simpler terms, Sharp Rhino didn't just sit on the computer like a regular file. It ran entirely in the computer's memory, leaving no trace on the hard drive for antivirus software to find. And when it came to communicating with its masters, Sharp Rhino used Cloudflare Workers, a legitimate cloud service, to disguise its conversations. It established encrypted HTTPS connections, hiding its malicious traffic in a sea of normal internet activity. It was like a spy using a busy cafe to meet their handler, concealing suspicious activity in plain sight. The implications were staggering. Sharp Rhino represented a new level of threat, one that could slip past traditional defenses and wreak havoc unseen. As news of its discovery spread, cybersecurity experts around the world scrambled to update their defenses, knowing that they were now in a race against time. For in the shadowy world of cybercrime, knowledge spreads quickly. And somewhere out there, other malicious actors were surely already working to replicate and improve upon Sharp Rhino's groundbreaking techniques. The digital arms race had entered a new phase, and the stakes had never been higher. As the summer of 2024 drew to a close, the cybersecurity world found itself grappling with a menace that had grown from a whisper to a roar in less than a year. Hunters International, first spotted on October 20th, 2023, had carved out a terrifying niche for itself in the digital underworld. Hunters International has carved out a significant portion of the threat landscape by becoming the 10th most active ransomware group in 2024, a stark testament to the group's meteoric rise. The numbers were staggering. In just 7 months, Hunters International had claimed responsibility for 134 attacks. It was as if they were working through a deadly checklist, ticking off victim after victim with ruthless efficiency. Their reach seemed limitless. Like a digital plague, they spread across the globe, targeting organizations in every sector imaginable. No one was safe, except, curiously, for countries in the Commonwealth of Independent States, CIS. This selective targeting raised eyebrows and fueled speculation about the group's origins. What set Hunters International apart was their approach. Unlike many of their peers who relied on off-the-shelf tools, they developed their ransomware using the Rust programming language. It was like they were crafting bespoke digital weapons, tailor-made for maximum impact. But perhaps most chilling was their focus. Hunters International wasn't content with merely locking up data. They were thieving information and then used it as leverage. It's digital extortion at its finest. Even the sanctity of healthcare wasn't spared. reports emerged of attacks on hospitals and clinics, with the group stooping so low as to target individual patients with extortion attempts. It was a new level of cruelty in the digital age. As law enforcement and cybersecurity experts raced to keep up, a troubling theory gained traction. Despite the group's denials, many in the cyber intelligence community couldn't shake the feeling that they were dealing with an old foe in new clothing. Despite the group denying it, many experts in the cyber intelligence community have attributed Hunters International to the now defunct Russian-based Hive ransomware group. As August 2024 came to an end, the cybersecurity landscape looked bleaker than ever. Hunters International had proven themselves a force to be reckoned with. And no matter if you take down their servers, something will come back to take its place every time.
In the dimly lit confines of a nondescript apartment in Russia, Mikhail Matveyev, known in the digital underworld as Wazawaka, hunches over his computer. His fingers dance across the keyboard, orchestrating a symphony of code that will soon bring chaos to unsuspecting victims halfway across the globe. The soft glow of multiple monitors illuminates his face, reflecting the complex web of cybercrime forums and hacked networks. He navigates with practiced ease. Operating from Khakassia, Russia, Matveyev has been identified by cybersecurity researchers as a major player in the Russian-speaking cybercrime scene. His activities have drawn the attention of U.S. authorities, culminating in a $10 million reward offer from the U.S. Department of State for information leading to his arrest or conviction. As stated by the State Department, today, the State Department is announcing a reward offer under the Transnational Organized Crime Rewards Program, TOCRP, of up to $10 million for information leading to the arrest and/or conviction of Russian national Mikhail Pavlovich Matveyev for transnational organized crime. Alleged involvement in ransomware incidents targeting U.S. law enforcement, businesses, and critical infrastructure globally has led to serious legal consequences. The Department of Justice has unsealed 2 indictments against him in the District of Columbia and New Jersey, while the Treasury Department has imposed financial sanctions. Matveyev's own words reveal his true beliefs. Don't fit where you live, travel local, and don't go abroad, a mantra that has allowed him to operate with apparent impunity from within Russia's borders. This simple yet effective philosophy has allowed him to operate with impunity, targeting institutions and businesses far beyond Russian borders, while remaining safely ensconced within his homeland. This case raises critical questions about the motivations driving cybercriminals like Matveyev and the complex ecosystem that enables their operations to flourish across international boundaries. These individuals often start as skilled programmers or network specialists who transition into the cybercrime world, drawn by the potential for high financial rewards and the perceived safety of operating from within Russia. The career paths of Russian cybercriminals like Mikhail Matveyev, Wazawaka, and Maxim Georgievich Kurtsov, X999XX, reveal a sophisticated and lucrative underground ecosystem. These individuals often start as skilled programmers or network specialists who transition into the hacking world, drawn by the potential for high financial rewards and the perceived safety of operating from within Russia. Cybersecurity researchers uncovered that Matveyev, identified as Wazawaka, has been active on multiple cybercrime forums, selling access to organizations and stolen databases. Matveyev's journey shows his evolution from a network access broker to a key player in multiple ransomware operations. Matveyev claimed to have worked with ransomware groups like Lockbit and DarkSide. According to sources, Wazawaka said Lockbit had paid him roughly $500,000 in commissions for the 6 months leading up to September 2020. The U.S. Department of Justice indictments against Mikhail Matveyev allege his involvement in Babuk, Hive, and Lockbit ransomware operations, targeting law enforcement agencies, healthcare organizations, and other entities. Kurtzhoff, identified as X999XX, operates as a network access broker. X999XX is a well-known access broker who frequently sells access to hacked corporate networks, usually in the form of remote access credentials, as well as compromised databases containing large amounts of personal and financial data. Kurtzhoff claimed to focus on stealing data rather than harming healthcare institutions. His role demonstrates the interconnected nature of cybercriminal operations, where different actors play specialized roles within a larger criminal enterprise. The structure of these ransomware operations typically involves access brokers like Kurtzhoff, who compromise corporate networks and sell access credentials on cybercrime forums. Ransomware affiliates such as Matviev then use this access to deploy malware and extort victims. This division of labor allows for a high degree of efficiency and profitability within the cybercrime ecosystem. A key assumption underlying these operations is that basing themselves in Russia provides a significant level of protection from international law enforcement. This belief is reinforced by the apparent lack of local prosecution for crimes targeting entities outside of Russia. Matviev's personal mantra, "Don't where you live, travel local, and don't go abroad," encapsulates this mindset, suggesting a perception of immunity as long as they remain within Russian borders and avoid targeting domestic institutions. However, the actions taken by U.S. authorities, including the $10 million reward offer, indictments, and financial sanctions, demonstrate ongoing efforts to combat these cybercriminal activities. The U.S. State Department is offering a $10 million reward for the capture and/or prosecution of Matviev, but they also said he is unlikely to face either as long as he continues to reside in Russia. Mikhail Pavlovich Matviev's alleged involvement with multiple ransomware groups, Babuk, Hive, and Lockbit, showcases the complexity of modern ransomware operations. Each of these groups employs distinct tactics and malware strains, demonstrating the evolving nature of cyber threats. Ransomware, a type of malicious software designed to encrypt a victim's files and demand payment for decryption, has become increasingly sophisticated. The Lockbit ransomware, for instance, is known for its rapid encryption process and self-spreading capabilities, making it particularly dangerous for corporate networks. Babuk, on the other hand, gained notoriety for targeting Windows systems and VMware ESXi servers, expanding the potential attack surface. Let's look at some specific attacks attributed to Matviev that highlight the diverse targets of ransomware operations. The June 25, 2020 Lockbit attack on a New Jersey law enforcement agency underscores the targeting of critical government infrastructure. The April 26, 2021 Babuk attack on the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department demonstrates the potential for ransomware to compromise sensitive law enforcement data. The May 27, 2022 Hive attack on a New Jersey healthcare organization illustrates the vulnerability of the healthcare sector to cybercrime. These incidents also reveal the concept of double extortion modern ransomware attacks. This tactic involves not only encrypting the victim's data, but also threatening to publish stolen information, increasing pressure on victims to pay the ransom. The financial aspect of these operations is significant. Matviev's claim of earning $500,000 in 6 months from Lockbit alone indicates the lucrative nature of ransomware as a service RaaS models. In RaaS operations, developers lease their ransomware to affiliates who carry out attacks, sharing the profits. This business model has lowered the barrier to entry for cybercriminals and contributed to the proliferation of ransomware attacks. The technical sophistication and financial motivation behind these operations present significant challenges for cybersecurity professionals and law enforcement agencies worldwide, necessitating continual adaptation of defense strategies and international cooperation in combating cybercrime. Yes, this really is the reality. Maxim Georgievich Kurtzov, identified by cybersecurity researcher Brian Krebs as the prolific network access broker X999XX from Ozersk, Russia, exemplifies a crucial role in the cybercrime ecosystem. As a network access broker, Kurtzov specializes in providing initial network access to various ransomware groups. This position is pivotal in the chain of cybercriminal activities, often serving as the entry point for more damaging attacks. X999XX is well known for frequently selling access to hacked corporate networks and compromised databases on cybercrime forums. The access he provides typically comes in the form of remote access credentials, a critical first step for ransomware groups to infiltrate target systems. Additionally, X999XX deals in compromised databases containing large amounts of personal and financial data, highlighting the diverse nature of the information at risk in these breaches. When contacted via email by the security researcher Brian Krebs, who helped identify him, Kurtzov acknowledged his identity as X999XX. He provided direct confirmation of his role in these activities. Interestingly, Kurtzov claimed to focus on stealing data rather than causing harm to healthcare institutions. This assertion raises questions about the ethical boundaries, if any, that cybercriminals set for themselves and the varying degrees of perceived harm in different types of cybercrimes. The impact of access brokers like Kurtzov on the broader cybercrime ecosystem is significant. By providing the initial point of entry, they enable ransomware groups and other malicious actors to carry out their attacks more efficiently. Think of him like the vending machine for compromised organizations. He'll provide you a list of all the companies he's currently hiding in. Then, after you choose who you want and pay a small fee, he'll give you an entry point for you to then do whatever you please to the organization's network and sensitive files. This specialization in the cybercrime world demonstrates the increasingly sophisticated and compartmentalized nature of these criminal operations, making them more challenging to combat. The actions taken by U.S. authorities against these hackers highlight the complex challenges in combating transnational cybercrime. While traditional law enforcement tools like indictments and financial sanctions are employed, they also reveal the limitations of these approaches in the digital realm. The $10 million reward offered by the State Department under the Transnational Organized Crime Rewards Program (TOCRP) represents a strategy known as bug bounty programs in cybersecurity, but applied to human targets. Bug bounties typically reward ethical hackers for finding and reporting software vulnerabilities. Here, the concept is adapted to incentivize information leading to the arrest of cybercriminals. The indictments against Matveev in multiple jurisdictions reflect the geographically dispersed nature of cybercrime impacts. This necessitates a coordinated response across different legal domains, a concept known as multi-jurisdictional cybercrime prosecution. Such prosecutions often involve complex legal challenges, including issues of digital evidence admissibility and cross-border data access. Financial sanctions imposed by the Treasury Department represent an attempt to disrupt the cybercrime ecosystem through economic means. This approach, sometimes referred to as follow-the-money tactics, aims to cut off cybercriminals from their financial infrastructure, including cryptocurrency exchanges and traditional banking systems. However, these measures face significant obstacles due to the concept of bulletproof hosting, services that provide cybercriminals with resilient, often legally ambiguous infrastructure to conduct their operation. Many of these services operate from jurisdictions with limited international law enforcement cooperation, creating safe havens for cybercriminals. The effectiveness of these law enforcement actions is further complicated by the use of advanced anonymization techniques by cybercriminals. Tools like the Onion Router, Tor, virtual private networks, VPNs, and blockchain technologies for transactions create layers of obfuscation that challenge traditional investigative methods. This multifaceted approach by law enforcement reflects an evolving strategy in cybersecurity known as defense in depth, adapted for offensive purposes against cybercriminals. It combines legal, financial, and technical measures to create a more comprehensive response to the sophisticated and adaptable nature of modern cybercrime operations. In February 2024, law enforcement agencies introduced a new dimension to their cybercrime disruption efforts through Operation Chronos, a global initiative led by the UK's National Crime Agency, the NCA. This operation specifically targeted the Lockbit ransomware group, which authorities claim has extorted more than $500 million from victims. As one investigator bluntly put it, now investigators are increasingly adding a new dimension to their disruption playbook, messing with cybercriminals' minds. To put it bluntly, they're trolling the hackers. Operation Chronos employed several psychological tactics aimed at sowing distrust, creating discord, and slowing down cybercriminal operations. The NCA infiltrated Lockbit systems and took them offline, demonstrating the vulnerability of even sophisticated cybercrime groups. In a bold move, investigators redesigned Lockbit's leak website, typically used to publish victims' stolen data, and instead used it to expose the group's inner workings. One of the most significant actions was the publication of usernames and login details of 194 Lockbit affiliate members. This exposure was later expanded to include the members' surnames, potentially compromising their anonymity and security within the cybercrime ecosystem. The operation also employed a dramatic countdown mechanism, building tension and anticipation within the cybercrime community. This countdown led to the unveiling of Lockbit Sup, alleged to be the mastermind behind the group. Russian national Dmitry Yuryevich Koroshev was ultimately charged with running Lockbit, with his identity revealed through bold graphics on the seized Lockbit website. It was a dramatic countdown, and I'm sure Dmitry had some sleepless nights, just like his countless victims. These tactics represent a shift from traditional law enforcement methods to more psychologically oriented approaches. By infiltrating and manipulating the cybercriminals' own communication channels and infrastructure, authorities aim to create an environment of uncertainty and mistrust within these groups. The potential impact of these tactics on the cybercriminal ecosystem could be significant, potentially disrupting established networks, deterring potential recruits, and complicating future operations for these groups. The challenge of combating Russian cybercriminals, as exemplified by the cases of Mikhail Pavlovich Matveyev and Maxim Georgievich Kurtsov, presents a complex set of obstacles for international law enforcement. The effectiveness of traditional law enforcement measures is limited when cybercriminals operate from countries that do not cooperate with international effort. The actions taken against Matveyev, including indictments, financial sanctions, and reward offers, demonstrate a coordinated approach involving multiple U.S. government agencies. However, the continued operation of individuals like Matveyev and Kurtsov suggests that these measures alone are insufficient. Long-term solutions will likely require enhanced international cooperation, particularly in addressing the safe havens that some countries provide for cybercriminals. The psychological operations employed in Operation Chronos against the Lockbit ransomware group represent innovative approaches to disrupting cybercriminal ecosystems. These tactics, aimed at creating uncertainty and distrust within cybercriminal groups, may prove to be valuable tools in this ongoing battle. Combating international cybercrime all over the globe requires a deep approach involving legal, financial, technical, and psychological tactics. The challenges are significant. Leave a comment on how you think we can solve international cybercrime. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, as this leaves me scratching my head.
In the depths of winter, as snow blanketed the Korean peninsula, a new policy emerged from the secretive halls of North Korea's government. On January 15, 2024, Kim Jong-un, the country's leader, stood before the 14th Supreme People's Assembly. His voice echoed through the Grand Chamber as he unveiled a bold new initiative, the 20x10 policy for local development. The policy, ambitious in scope, aimed to breathe life into North Korea's struggling economy. Its goal was simple, yet far-reaching: to construct modernized industrial plants in 20 cities and counties every year. As Kim Jong-un's words reverberated through the assembly hall, he painted a picture of a resurgent North Korea, one where smokestacks would rise from previously barren landscapes and the hum of machinery would replace the silence of underdevelopment. To the casual observer, this might have seemed like a standard announcement of economic policy, but to those versed in the intricate dance of international relations and cybersecurity, it was a warning of things to come. For how could a nation, isolated and under strict international sanctions, hope to achieve such rapid industrialization? The answer, as we would soon discover, lay in the dark realm of state-sponsored industrial espionage. This is a form of cyber attack where a government uses its resources to steal industrial secrets and technological innovations from other countries. It's like sending spies into a rival company, but instead of physical infiltration, it's done through extremely sophisticated hacking. As the assembly concluded and the delegates filed out into the cold January air, few could have predicted the chain of events that this policy would set in motion. The 20x10 policy was more than just an economic plan. It was the opening move in a high-stakes game of cyber chess that South Korea would soon be playing. Little did South Korea's thriving construction and machinery industries know that they were about to become the unwitting targets of one of the most audacious cyber espionage campaigns in recent history. As the snow continued to fall outside, the first lines of malicious code were already being written, setting the stage for a digital heist of unprecedented scale. As the cold January winds swept across South Korea, a silent storm was brewing in the digital realm. The bustling construction industry, a pillar of the nation's economy, was about to face an unprecedented threat. Enter the Kimsuki hacking group, a shadowy team of North Korean cyber operatives. Like thieves in the night, they moved with precision and purpose. Their target? The website of a prominent South Korean construction trade organization. Picture, if you will, a busy office in Seoul. An engineer, coffee in hand, logs into the trade organization's website to check the latest industry news. Little does he know that this routine act is about to unleash a digital Pandora's box. The Kimsuki group had compromised the website, but not in a way that would raise immediate alarms. No, their method was far more insidious. They had tampered with the very software used to log into the site, the security authentication software. It's as if they had replaced the lock on a door with an identical-looking one, but this new lock would secretly make a copy of every key that turned it. This malicious software, hidden in plain sight, was a Trojan horse. When users downloaded and ran it, thinking they were simply logging in as usual, they were unknowingly inviting the attackers into their systems. It was a masterclass in deception, a digital sleight of hand that would make even the most skilled magician envious. The impact was swift and far-reaching. Like a virus spreading through a crowded city, the malware infected the computers of local governments, public institutions, and construction companies across South Korea. Each infected machine became a silent informant, feeding sensitive data back to the attackers. The compromised security authentication software, named NX Pernman and Trust PKI, was the key to their operation. These programs, normally guardians of digital safety, had been turned into Trojan horses. When unsuspecting users downloaded them to log into the construction trade website, they were unknowingly inviting the attackers into their systems. But the hackers' cunning didn't stop there. They had stolen a digital certificate from D2 Innovation, a respected Korean defense company. This certificate was like a forged passport, allowing the malicious software to pass through security checkpoints undetected. Most antivirus programs and web browsers, seeing this trusted signature, waved the malware through without a second glance. Once installed, the software deployed its payload, a malicious program called Troll Agent. This digital spy was designed to pilfer a treasure trove of sensitive information. It can capture screenshots showing exactly what was on a user's screen. It rifled through web browsers like Naver Whale, as well as ones you might be more familiar with, Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge. It steals saved passwords, browsing history, and even cookies, small files that websites use to remember user preferences. But Troll Agent's appetite for data didn't stop there. It also targeted GPKI certificates used for secure government communications, SSH keys, which allow secure access to remote systems, and even personal notes stored in applications like sticky notes. The attack was timed with precision. The compromised installer would only appear on the website at specific, calculated times. This made the attack harder to detect and trace. The scale of the breach was staggering. Over 3,000 computers fell victim to this digital intrusion, spanning local governments, public institutions, and construction companies across South Korea. Cybersecurity researchers were able to sniff out the traces that these hackers left behind. The digital fingerprints, what we call indicators of compromise, IOCs. These included unique identifiers for the malicious files. The MD5 hash of the executable files, shown on screen, are what cybersecurity researchers scan networks for, trying to find any trace of the exact sequence of numbers and letters. The attackers also used specific internet domains and an IP address to control their malware, forming a network of digital hideouts. These were the domains they were using at the time of their attacks. In total, 8 domains and 1 IP address, all pointing to their malicious activity. As investigators pieced together these digital clues, the full scope of the Kimsuki Group's audacious attack began to emerge. It was clear that this was no ordinary cyber intrusion, but a carefully orchestrated campaign with far-reaching implications for South Korea's construction industry and beyond. As spring blossomed across South Korea, a new threat emerged from the dark corner of the internet. The construction and machinery companies, still reeling from the Kimsuki attack, found themselves in the crosshairs of another North Korean hacking group, Andariel. Andariel moved with stealth and precision. Their target? The very systems meant to protect these companies from cyber threats. Picture, if you will, a bustling office in Seoul. Engineers and designers work tirelessly on blueprints for new industrial plants, unaware that their secure connection to the outside world, their VPN, has become their greatest vulnerability. VPNs, or virtual private networks, are like secure tunnels through the internet. They're meant to keep data safe as it travels between a company's computers and the wider web. But Andariel had found a crack in this system. The group, known for its cunning and persistence, had discovered a flaw in the communication protocol of a popular South Korean VPN software. It was as if they had found a secret passage into a fortress, one that bypassed all the guards and alarm systems. This vulnerability allowed Andariel to push fake software updates to unsuspecting companies. Employees, thinking they were simply keeping their systems secure, unknowingly invited the attackers in. When the VPN software checked for updates, it didn't properly verify where those updates were coming from. It's as if the software asked, "Are you my update server?" And Andariel simply replied, "Yes," without showing any ID. The VPN accepted this answer without question. Using this flaw, Andariel sent fake software updates to unsuspecting companies. These updates looked legitimate, but they carried a dangerous payload, a program called DORA-RAT. DORA-RAT is what we call a remote access Trojan. Think of it as a digital spy that sneaks into a computer and then opens a back door for the hackers. Once installed, DORA-RAT could steal large files, like blueprints for machinery or plans for new industrial plants. The attack left behind more indicators of compromise, and cybersecurity researchers were desperately trying to track down the origin. These included unique identifiers for the malicious files. These long strings of letters and numbers are like digital fingerprints for the malicious files. They help cybersecurity experts identify and track the attack. The hackers also used a specific domain and internet address to control their malware. These are the addresses where the stolen data was sent, like a dead drop for stolen goods, but on the internet. The impact on the targeted companies was severe. Valuable intellectual property, the key components of these industries, was now in the hands of the attackers. It was as if the blueprints for South Korea's industrial future had been quietly copied and smuggled away in the night. As investigators pieced together the attack, a disturbing picture began to emerge. This wasn't just about stealing data. It was about something much bigger. But to understand the full scope of what was happening, we need to step back and look at the bigger picture. The information community of South Korea, a coalition of cybersecurity experts from various government agencies, had been quietly piecing together the puzzle. Their findings were startling. The attacks on construction and machinery organizations, as well as local government officials, hadn't just increased. They had skyrocketed compared to the previous year. It was as if a dam had broken, releasing a flood of cyber assaults. But what truly sent chills down the spines of the investigators was the connection they drew between the Kimsuki and Andariel operations. These weren't isolated incidents. They were part of a coordinated campaign, a digital campaign targeting South Korea's industrial heart. As they dug deeper, a disturbing theory emerged. The stolen data, blueprints, machinery designs, urban planning documents, it all pointed to one thing: North Korea's ambitious 20x10 policy for local development. The implications were clear. This wasn't just theft. It was industrial espionage on a massive scale. North Korea, it seemed, was trying to leapfrog its own technological limitations by stealing South Korea's industrial secrets. The methods used in these attacks were sophisticated, employing several advanced cybersecurity concepts. Firstly, they are performing supply chain attacks. Imagine a factory that makes car parts. Instead of targeting the car manufacturer directly, hackers compromise the parts supplier. When the car manufacturer uses these parts, their systems get infected too. That's how Kimsuki compromised the construction trade organization's website. Secondly, they used what's called a watering hole attack. Think of a lion waiting by a watering hole for prey. Similarly, hackers infect a website they know their targets often visit. When the targets visit the site, they get infected. This is what happened when people logged into the compromised construction website. Thirdly, code signing certificate abuse. This is like forging a passport. Hackers steal legitimate security certificates and use them to make their malware look trustworthy. That's how they bypassed security checks with the stolen D2 Innovation Certificate. As the information community shared their findings, a sense of urgency gripped South Korea's cybersecurity apparatus. The attacks weren't just about stealing data anymore. They were about stealing the future. South Korea's industrial edge. This is the reality of cybersecurity in 2024. As investigators peeled back the layers of this cyber attack, they found themselves face to face with two digital monsters, Troll Agent and Dora Rat. These weren't your average computer viruses. They were sophisticated tools of espionage, crafted with care and malice in equal measure. Let's start with Troll Agent, the sneaky data thief. Imagine a burglar who not only breaks into your house, but also disguises himself as a piece of furniture to avoid detection. That's Troll Agent for you. It was written in a programming language called Go, which is like a Swiss Army knife for coders, versatile and efficient. But the hackers didn't stop there. They used something called VM Protect to pack Troll Agent, which is like wrapping an already wrapped Christmas present. It makes it harder for antivirus software to see what's inside. Once Troll Agent sneaks onto a computer, it runs through a program called run-dll32.exe. Think of this as a secret door that leads straight into the heart of your computer's operating system. From there, Troll Agent goes on a stealing spree. It grabs system information, passwords, browser data, and even special security certificates called GPKI and SSH keys. It's like a digital pickpocket, lifting everything of value it can find. Now, let's talk about Dora Rat. If Troll Agent is a sneaky thief, Dora Rat is more like a spy who sets up camp in your house. RAT stands for Remote Access Trojan, which means the hackers can control it from afar. Dora Rat is lightweight, meaning it doesn't take up much space or use much processing power. This helps it stay hidden, and it needed to be lightweight because Dora Rat had one main job: to steal large files, especially blueprints for machinery. Imagine a spy sneaking into a factory and photographing the designs for a new, top-secret machine. That's essentially what Dora Rat was doing, but on the internet. The hackers didn't just use one version of their malware. They had different versions written in Go and C++, two different programming languages. It's like having different lock-picking tools for different types of locks. The way these malicious programs were delivered was equally clever. Remember the VPN vulnerability we talked about earlier? That's one way they got in. They also hijacked software updates, turning what should have been security improvements into Trojan horses. All of this malware needed a way to communicate back to the hackers. This is where the command and control infrastructure, or C2 infrastructure, comes in. Think of it as a network of secret bases where the stolen data is sent and where the hackers send new orders to their digital spies. Interestingly, the techniques used in these attacks were similar to previous campaigns by the Kimsuki group. The indicators of compromise, the IOCs, are like fingerprints or DNA evidence at a crime scene. They include unique identifiers for the malicious files and the internet addresses used by the hackers. These IOCs are crucial for detecting and stopping future attacks. As the full picture of the attack came into focus, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a random act of cybercrime. This was a carefully orchestrated campaign of industrial espionage, with its roots reaching all the way back to North Korea's ambitious plans for modernization. The digital battlefield had become the new front line in a silent war for technological supremacy. South Korea sprang into action. The government and private sector once caught off guard, now moved with purpose and determination. Their response was like a neighborhood coming together after a storm, each person playing their part in the recovery. First came the mitigation strategies. It was as if the entire country was patching up holes in a giant digital fence. They implemented strict software distribution policies. A strict approval policy for software distribution can mitigate damage. If administrator authentication is required at the final distribution stage, vulnerabilities in the automatic distribution stage can be prevented. Think of this as having a security guard check everyone's ID before they enter a building, even if they look like they belong there. Electronic software distribution has become the primary method of software distribution for many companies, especially with the rise of cloud computing and always connected devices. It allows for more efficient distribution, easier updates, and better control over software versions and licensing. It's extremely hard as a defender in cybersecurity to balance both security and business operational requirements. But perhaps the most important step was education. Ongoing security education for organization members is important. Customized education is needed for general members and IT organizations. This wasn't just about teaching people to spot phishing emails. It was about creating a culture of cybersecurity awareness where everyone from the CEO to the intern understood the risks and knew how to protect themselves. The government also stepped up its game. They started issuing regular cybersecurity advisories, like weather warnings for the digital world. Companies and individuals were encouraged to keep an eye on these, staying alert for any new threats on the horizon. Website operators weren't left out either. They could now request security inspections from the KISA, the Korea Internet and Security Agency. It was like calling in the health inspector, but for websites. The hunt for the hackers continued. Cybersecurity experts used the IOCs, those digital fingerprints left behind by the attackers, to track their movements. But for these hackers, since they're residing in North Korea, they are pretty safe from the authorities. As these measures took effect, a sense of cautious optimism began to spread. The attacks had been a harsh wake-up call, but South Korea was determined not to be caught off guard again. Yet, as the immediate crisis passed, just think how would this change the balance of power in the region? And what would North Korea do next in its quest for technological advancement? The answers to these questions would shape the future of not just South Korea, but the entire peninsula. The true scale of what had transpired became clear. North Korean hackers had and are continuing to orchestrate coordinated campaigns of unprecedented sophistication against all kinds of countries and industries. The attacks carried out by the Kimsuki and Andariel groups were not random acts of cybercrime. They were calculated moves in a larger game of industrial espionage, directly linked to North Korea's ambitious 20 times 10 policy for local development. The stolen data, blueprints, designs, and trade secrets was the fuel North Korea needs. The Kimsuki supply chain attack, which compromised a construction trade organization's website and infected over 3,000 systems, showed how vulnerable even trusted platforms can be. The Andariel VPN exploit, targeting construction and machinery companies, demonstrated that our defenses are only as strong as their weakest link. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of these attacks was their sophistication. The use of stolen certificates, the precisely timed deployment of malware, the exploitation of software update mechanisms. All of these point to a level of planning and resources that only a state-backed operation could muster. It's no longer just about protecting individual computers or networks. It's about safeguarding entire industries, economies, and national security. Finally, we must recognize the crucial role of indicators of compromise, IOCs, in cybersecurity defense. These digital fingerprints, the unique identifiers of malicious files, the command and control domains used by the attackers, are our best tools for detecting and preventing future attacks. They're like wanted posters in the digital Wild West, helping us identify the bad guys before they can strike again. However, they are always changing. As one IOC is caught and published, hundreds more may be created, soon to be a new lead in the vast web of cybercrime. Leave a comment down below on your thoughts on the reality of cybersecurity in 2024. If you enjoy the videos, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, as we'll be covering the most notable cybersecurity events and the most notorious hackers.
Today we're diving into a wild cybersecurity story that's been unfolding over the past decade. It's all about a tool called Cobalt Strike, a name that might sound like a video game, but trust me, it's way more intense than that. So imagine you're back in 2012, and a company called Fortra, which used to go by Help Systems, releases this shiny new tool. Cobalt Strike, they called it. Now, this wasn't your average piece of software. It was designed for the good guys. You know, those red teams you might have heard about. These red teams, they're like the Navy SEALs of the cyber world. Their job? To break into company networks. Legally, of course. To find weak spots before the bad guys do. And Cobalt Strike. It was their new secret weapon. Cobalt Strike isn't just some simple program. It's what we call a full-featured remote access tool. Basically, it's like a Swiss Army knife for hackers, both the good and the bad kind. Now you might be wondering, what makes this tool so special? Well, Cobalt Strike is designed to mimic what the most advanced hackers do after they've broken into a system. It's got this whole range of tricks up its sleeve, all packed into one neat package. Cobalt Strike covers the full range of MITRE attack tactics within a single integrated system. For those of you who aren't familiar, MITRE attack is a framework that describes the actions an attacker might take to compromise and operate within an enterprise network. We're talking about everything from initial access to data exfiltration. And get this, it actually started life as something else entirely. It's the commercial spin-off of an open-source project called Armitage. The folks at Fortra took Armitage, which was already pretty cool because it added a user-friendly graphical interface to another hacking tool called Metasploit, and turned it into this powerhouse we now know as Cobalt Strike. Cobalt Strike was meant to be a tool for the good guys, a way to help companies shore up their defenses. But as we'll see, things didn't exactly go according to plan. You see, between 2015 and 2020, things took a wild turn. The bad guys had other plans. Here's the deal. Some crafty hackers managed to get their hands on cracked versions of Cobalt Strike. Now, for those of you wondering, a cracked version is basically a pirated copy. These guys broke the software's licensing protection and started sharing it around like candy at Halloween. The folks at Fortra, they tried to keep things tight. They carefully screened their customers, only giving out licenses for legit use. But you know how it goes. Where there's a will, there's a way. And these malicious actors, they had a whole lot of will. So what made Cobalt Strike so appealing to the dark side? Well, it's all about what happens after a hacker breaks into a system. We call this the post-exploitation stage. Imagine you're a burglar who's just picked a lock. Now, that's where Cobalt Strike shines. The tool deploys these things called beacons. Think of them like little spies that set up shop in a compromised network. They create a persistent backdoor, giving the attacker ongoing access. It's like leaving the window cracked open so you can sneak back in whenever you want. These beacons are seriously powerful. They can steal sensitive data or drop additional malicious payloads. Basically plant more nasty surprises in the system. And get this, Cobalt Strike can be configured to use different communication protocols like TCP and UDP. In simple terms, it's got multiple ways to phone home without getting caught. But wait, there's more. Cobalt Strike isn't just about sneaking around. It's got some serious spy-level capabilities. We're talking keylogging. That's recording every keystroke a user makes. It can capture your screen, showing the attacker exactly what you're seeing. And if that wasn't enough, it can also exfiltrate files. Fancy words for stealing your data. Now, here's where things get really concerning. Over time, Cobalt Strike became one of the most widely used tools in cyber attacks. We're talking major league stuff here. Data theft and ransomware attacks. You know those news stories about companies getting hacked and having their data held for ransom? Chances are, Cobalt Strike played a part in many of those. It's like this perfect tool for hackers turned into the go-to tool for cybercriminals worldwide. A classic case of a good tool falling into the wrong hands and causing havoc. But folks, this is just the beginning of our story. Cobalt Strike's journey from security tool to hacker's best friend was about to take even more twists and turns. Welcome, Operation Morpheus. This is where things get really intense. In June 24, Europol, the big guns of European law enforcement, decided it's time to take action. From June 24th to 28th, they coordinate this massive operation across 27 countries. We're talking about a global crackdown on the bad guys using Cobalt Strike. It's going to get a little technical, but stick with me. The operation wasn't just targeting any old Cobalt Strike instances. They were specifically after older, unlicensed versions of the tool. See, these are the ones the criminals love because they're easier to get and harder to track. During this operation, law enforcement did some serious detective work. They identified known IP addresses. Think of these as the unique digital addresses of computers on the internet that were associated with criminal activity. But they didn't stop there. They also tracked down domain names that were part of the attack infrastructure used by these criminal groups. By the end of this week-long operation, they had flagged a whopping 690 IP addresses to internet service providers across those 27 countries. That's 690 instances of malicious Cobalt Strike software, folks. Each one of these could have been used in attacks against businesses, governments, or even individuals like you and me. This wasn't just a law enforcement show. Some big names in the cybersecurity industry got involved too. We're talking heavy hitters like BAE Systems, Digital Intelligence, Trellix, Spamhaus, Abuse.ch, and the Shadow Server Foundation. These guys brought their A game, offering up their high-tech scanning abilities, telemetry, that's like real-time data collection, and analytical skills to help identify Cobalt Strike servers that the criminals were using. Think about it like this. If the cyber criminals were hiding in a dense forest, these private industry partners brought the equivalent of high-tech satellite imagery and heat-sensing equipment to the search party. They made it a whole lot harder for the bad guys to stay hidden. This Operation Morpheus, it wasn't just about finding these malicious instances of Cobalt Strike. It was about taking them down, cutting off the criminals' access to this powerful tool. And let me tell you, the results were pretty impressive. Let's dive into the aftermath of Operation Morpheus. This is where things get real. By the end of that intense week in June 24, law enforcement had pulled off something pretty impressive. Out of those 690 malicious Cobalt Strike addresses they identified, they managed to take down 593. That's like wiping out 86% of the bad guys' infrastructure in one fell swoop. Now, you might be wondering, how did they pull this off? Well, it wasn't just a one-country show. This was a global effort. We're talking about law enforcement authorities from Australia, Canada, Germany, the Netherlands, Poland, and the United States all working together. And leading the charge? The United Kingdom's National Crime Agency. The cops weren't working alone. They had some serious backup from the private sector. These online service providers, think of them as the companies that keep the internet running. They were given all the intel collected during the operation. Their job? To disable those unlicensed versions of Cobalt Strike that the bad guys were using. And it didn't stop there. Remember those big tech companies I mentioned earlier? Well, they brought some serious firepower to the table. We're talking about enhanced scanning capabilities. Imagine super-powered antivirus on steroids. They also provided telemetry. That's like real-time data about what's happening on networks. And some serious analytical muscle. All of this tech wizardry helped identify the Cobalt Strike servers that the cybercriminals were using in their campaigns. It's like shining a spotlight on roaches. Nowhere for the bad guys to hide. The good guys were using something called the Malware Information Sharing Platform, MISP for short. Think of it as a high-tech bulletin board where private sector organizations could share real-time threat intelligence with law enforcement. It's like if Neighborhood Watch had access to satellite imagery and AI analysis. This operation wasn't just about taking down some IP addresses. It was about dismantling a tool that had become a favorite among cyber criminals worldwide. Cobalt Strike, once a legitimate security tool, had become a weapon in the wrong hands. And Operation Morpheus? It was all about taking that weapon away. This story isn't over yet. The repercussions from Operation Morpheus were about to send shockwaves through the cybersecurity world. On July 3, 2024, Europol dropped a bombshell announcement about Operation Morpheus. And let me tell you, the results were mind-blowing. This wasn't just some quick sting operation. Operation Morpheus was the culmination of a complex investigation that kicked off way back in 2021. That's right. The good guys had been working on this for 3 solid years before they made their move. During this time, Europol's EC3, that's their cybercrime center, organized over 40 coordination meetings. We're talking about law enforcement agencies and private partners from all over the world getting together to plan this massive takedown. It's like the cybersecurity equivalent of planning a heist. Except, they're the good guys. When the week of action finally came around in June 2024, Europol set up what they call a virtual command post. Think of it like a high-tech war room, but instead of being in one physical location, it was spread out across the globe. From this virtual HQ, they coordinated law enforcement action worldwide. It's pretty sci-fi stuff when you think about it. Over the span of the whole investigation, they shared over 730 pieces of threat intelligence. Now, for those of you wondering what threat intelligence is, it's basically information about potential or current attacks that might threaten an organization. And we're not talking about just a few tidbits here and there. These 730 pieces of intel contained almost 1.2 million indicators of compromise. Let me break that down for you. An indicator of compromise, or IOC, is a piece of forensic data that suggests a system might have been breached. It could be malware signatures, IP addresses of known bad guys, or even specific patterns in log files. So, 1.2 million of these? That's an absolutely massive amount of data to help identify and stop attacks. Now remember how Cobalt Strike started out as a legitimate tool back in 2012? Well, in 2024, illicit versions of it had been identified in some of the biggest cyber incidents in recent times. We're talking major league cybercrime here. Cobalt Strike had been spotted in investigations into attacks by some real nasty pieces of work. RIUC, TrickBot, Conti. These are names that send shivers down the spines of cybersecurity professionals. So what does all this mean? Well, Operation Morpheus wasn't just about taking down some servers. It was about dismantling a tool that had become a favorite weapon for cybercriminals worldwide. It was about turning the tables on the bad guys, using their own tactics against them. But here's the thing. As impressive as Operation Morpheus was, it's just one battle in an ongoing war. The cybercrime landscape is always evolving, always changing. The Cobalt Strike source code is still out there, waiting to be picked up by another ruthless criminal hacker. So, what's next in this never-ending chess game between cybercriminals and law enforcement? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure. The story of Cobalt Strike, from its beginnings as a legitimate security tool to its fall as a weapon of cybercrime, is one for the history book. Stay safe out there.
Today, we're talking about Chimera, not the fire-breathing monster from Greek mythology, but something potentially just as destructive. This nasty piece of work first reared its ugly head in November 2015, and it had some tricks up its sleeve that made cybersecurity experts sit up and take notice. Chimera? They took things a step further. Not only did it lock up your files, but it also threatened to publish your data online if you didn't pay up. They were one of the first ransomware gangs to deploy this double extortion tactic. Chimera wasn't just content with extorting money. They offered victims a chance to join their affiliate program and earn a 50% commission. That's right, they were trying to turn victims into accomplices. Talk about a twisted business model. But the story of Chimera isn't just about its initial attack. It's a tale of evolution, disappearance, and resurgence that kept cybersecurity researchers on their toes for years. And that is where our story really begins. All right, let's dive deeper into the backbone of Chimera's operations. Well, that's BitMessage. It isn't just your average messaging app. It's a peer-to-peer protocol, meaning it works like a network of friends passing notes, rather than relying on a central post office. This decentralized nature is key. There's no big company or government controlling the show. It's trustless, which means you don't need to rely on certificate authorities to verify who's who. Now let's break it down. First off, BitMessage is all about sending encrypted messages. Whether you're messaging one person or a whole group, everything's locked up tight. It's like putting your note in a box that only the intended recipient has the key to. But here's where it gets really cool. BitMessage is decentralized and trustless. In plain English, there's no big boss controlling everything. No central server. No company overlooking your shoulder. It's just you, your message, and a network of computers all working together. Now you might be thinking, how do I know the message is really from who it says it's from? Great question. BitMessage uses something called strong authentication. It's like having a super secret handshake that only you and your friend know. If the handshake doesn't match, you know something's fishy. But wait, there's more. BitMessage doesn't just protect your messages, it also hides what we call metadata. That's all the extra info that comes with a message, like who sent it, who received it when it was sent. BitMessage aims to keep all that under wraps, making it nearly impossible for eavesdroppers to snoop. So what does all this mean for cybersecurity? Well, it's a game changer. We're talking about a system that combines encryption, peer-to-peer networks, and metadata protection all in one package. It's like having a secret underground tunnel system for your messages, where even the tunnel diggers don't know where the messages are going. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Tools like BitMessage are a double-edged sword. They're fantastic for privacy, but they can also be used by folks who'd rather lurk in the shadows. We're about to dive into the first big crisis of our story. the emergence of Chimera ransomware. This is where things get real nasty, real fast. It's November 2015, and small and medium-sized businesses in Germany are about to have a really bad day. A new kind of ransomware hits the scene, and it's not plain nice. Now, let me break this down for you. Ransomware is like a digital kidnapper. It gets into your computer, locks up all your files, and demands money to give them back. But Chimera, it took things to a whole new level. Here's how it worked. The bad guys behind Chimera were clever. They didn't just blast out emails to everyone. No, they got personal. They sent out fake job applications and business offers. Sounds legit, right? But here's the kicker. These emails had Dropbox links. Click on one of those, and bam! You've just invited Chimera into your system. Once inside, Chimera did what ransomware does best. It encrypted all the files on the infected computer. But here's where it got really nasty. The ransom demand was about $950 in Bitcoin. That's a lot of money for a small business. But wait, there's more. Chimera also threatened to publish the victims' data online if they didn't pay up. Talk about adding insult to injury. Now, here's where the tech gets interesting. Chimera used something called BitMessage for its command and control communication. Remember BitMessage? That super secure peer-to-peer messaging system we talked about earlier? Yeah, the bad guys were using it to send instructions to their malware and receive info from infected computers. It's like they had a secret phone line that was nearly impossible to tap. Late November 2015, and things got weird. See, researchers who were keeping tabs on Chimera suddenly noticed something strange. The ransomware stopped generating keys through BitMessage. Now, in plain English, that means Chimera wasn't creating new ways to encrypt files or communicate with infected computers. It's like the bad guys suddenly went radio silent. This is what we call botnet and command and control infrastructure analysis. Basically, the good guys were watching how Chimera talked to the computers it infected, and suddenly, that chatter stopped. But here's the thing about cyber criminals. They're like cockroaches. Just when you think they're gone, they pop up again. And that's exactly what happened with Chimera. Fast forward to early December 2015, and Chimera's back in action. But it came back with a twist. Now, it wasn't just locking up files and demanding ransom. Nope, it got sneakier. The new version was offering victims a chance to join its affiliate program right after infecting their computers. They offered victims the option to join an affiliate program and earn a 50% commission. Can you believe that? It's like they were saying, hey, we just ruined your day. Want to help us ruin someone else's and make some cash? Think about that for a second. You're sitting there panicking because all your files are locked up, and then you get an offer to make money by helping spread the very thing that just ruined your day. It's like a digital version of Stockholm Syndrome. Chimera wasn't just trying to make a quick buck anymore. It was trying to stick around, to keep infecting more computers and make more money. And guess what? They were still using BitMessage for their command and control communication. Remember BitMessage? That super secure peer-to-peer messaging system. Yeah, Chimera was still using that to send instructions to infected computers and get information back. So there you have it. In the span of a few weeks, Chimera went from active to silent to active again, and came back with a new trick up its sleeve. It's a perfect example of how these cybercrime operations can evolve and adapt, always looking for new ways to make money and stay one step ahead of the good guys. This is why cybersecurity is such a challenging field. The bad guys never stop innovating, which means the good guys can never stop watching and adapting either. All right, buckle up. We're jumping ahead to July 2016, and things are about to get real interesting. This is when researchers pulled back the curtain on Chimera's operations. And boy, did they find some wild stuff. So remember BitMessage. Turns out it wasn't just for sending orders to infected computers. Nope. These crafty criminals were using it to distribute decryption keys to victims who paid up. It's like they set up a secret digital post office just for ransom payments. Here's how it worked, and trust me, it's pretty clever. First, the decryptor program, that's the software that's supposed to unlock your files, would keep checking a Bitcoin address. Think of it like constantly refreshing your email, waiting for that payment confirmation. Once the payment hit that Bitcoin address, the decryptor would subscribe to a BitMessage broadcast channel. It's like tuning into a radio station, but one that only Chimera and their victims could hear. Then, the malware authors, our bad guys, would send out hardware ID'd and private key pairs through this broadcast. Imagine them shouting out pairs of super long, complex passwords over this secret radio station. Finally, the decryptor would catch the right pair of passwords, matching the specific infected computer, and use it to unlock the files. It's a complex dance of cryptocurrency, key distribution, and peer-to-peer networking. Chimera wasn't just locking up files anymore. They'd built an entire system for collecting ransoms and doling out decryption keys, all while staying hidden. This is next-level stuff. It shows just how sophisticated these ransomware operations had become. They weren't just lone hackers in basements anymore. This was a full-blown criminal enterprise using cutting-edge tech to stay ahead of the good guys. It shows just how complex and innovative these threats had become. And this was just the beginning. So, Chimera's been causing havoc, right? Well, suddenly it goes dark. We're talking radio silence. From 2016 to 2017, it's like the bad guys packed up shop and disappeared into the digital ether. Then suddenly in 2017, the private keys for Chimera ransomware get leaked. Now, for those of you wondering what private keys are, think of them like the master key to a building. If you have it, you can unlock everything. The devs behind the Misha and Petya ransomware leaked approximately 3,500 RSA decryption keys for their ransomware. They got eliminated by their competition. Well, legitimate businesses compete with other legitimate businesses, so why should things be different amongst criminal outfits? The only real difference is that legit companies follow rules, regulations, and laws. Anyway, this leak was huge. It's like someone just handed out copies of that master key to everyone. Researchers got their hands on these keys and did what they do best. They checked if they were legit. And guess what? They were the real deal. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, with these private keys, the good guys could create decryption tools. Imagine you're locked out of your house, and suddenly, a locksmith shows up with the exact key you need. That's what these decryption tools were for Chimera's victims. This is what we call key leakage in the cybersecurity world. It's when the secret keys that keep everything locked up tight somehow get out into the wild. And when that happens, it's game over for the ransomware. The researchers went to town on these leaked keys, analyzing them, figuring out how they worked, and using that knowledge to build tools to help the victims. This is malware analysis in action, taking apart the bad guys' tools to figure out how to beat them. For Chimera's victims, this was like a get-out-of-jail-free card. All those encrypted files. Now they had a chance to get them back without paying a dime to the criminals. This leak was a major blow to Chimera. It's like someone just published their secret playbook for the whole world to see. But folks, in the world of cybercrime, setbacks like this are rarely the end of the story. The bad guys are always adapting, always coming up with new tricks. Let's zoom in on something that made Chimera stand out from the crowd. Its use of BitMessage. This wasn't just some random choice. It was a game changer for how ransomware operated. Now, why did this matter so much for Chimera? Well, BitMessage isn't just secure, it's sneaky too. This made it incredibly hard for the good guys to track what Chimera was up to. It provided a secure, hard-to-trace way to communicate with infected machines, distribute keys, and keep the whole operation running smoothly. Tools like BitMessage are a double-edged sword. They're great for privacy, but in the wrong hands, they become powerful weapons for cybercriminals. You see, Chimera wasn't just another ransomware. They were pioneers in a nasty tactic that would change the game for years to come. Let's talk about Chimera's lasting impact on the ransomware landscape. Back in November 2015, when Chimera first hit the scene, they brought something new to the table. They weren't just encrypting files and demanding ransom. No, they upped the ante. They threatened to publish the victim's data online if they didn't pay up. This, my friends, is what we call double extortion. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, before this, if a company had good backups, they could just restore their data and tell the ransomware gang to take a hike. But with the threat of data exposure, that changes everything. Even with the best backups in the world, you're still at risk of having your sensitive information splashed all over the internet. This double extortion tactic, it set a precedent. Chimera showed other ransomware groups that there was more than one way to squeeze their victims. They opened up a whole new playbook for cybercriminals. Now, I can't speculate on specific groups that came after Chimera or put exact numbers on their operations. That's not my style. And frankly, those kinds of details can change faster than you can say. But what I can tell you is this. Chimera's innovation had a ripple effect across the entire ransomware landscape. After Chimera, we saw more and more ransomware groups adopting this double extortion tactic. It became a trend, then a standard practice for many operations. The stakes got higher, the demands got bigger, and the pressure on victims intensified. So when we talk about the evolution of ransomware tactics, Chimera stands out as a turning point. They weren't just after quick cash. They introduced a level of sophistication and psychological warfare that would shape the future of cybercrime. Understanding how these threats evolve helps us stay one step ahead in protecting ourselves and our data. In the world of cybersecurity, secure communication versus potential misuse is a tricky balancing act. Here's the thing about security tools. They're not bulletproof. Even the best-intentioned tech can have weak spots. Take BitMessage version 0.6.2, for example. At some point, someone found a nasty vulnerability in it. We're talking remote code execution. That's like leaving your front door wide open. The BitMessage team didn't mess around. They patched that hole, releasing version 0.6. They told everyone to either upgrade or downgrade to version 0.6.1. It's like when your phone keeps bugging you to update. There's usually a good reason for it. Even one of BitMessage's own developers, Peter Erta, had his addresses compromised. Goes to show, in this digital world, nobody's immune. The ongoing challenge of balancing secure communication and potential misuse. The good guys create tools to keep us safe. The bad guys find ways to exploit them. And round we go. We've been on quite a ride with this ransomware, and now it's time to learn from it. First things first, keep your eyes peeled for phishing attempts. Remember how Chimera spread through fake job applications and business offers? That's classic phishing. If an email looks fishy, think twice before clicking any links or downloading attachments. Even if it looks legit, double-check the sender's address. Next up, backups. I can't stress this enough. Regular backups of your important files can be a lifesaver if ransomware strikes. Keep these backups offline or on a separate network so they don't get encrypted too. Now, let's talk software updates. Remember that vulnerability in BitMessage. That's why keeping your software up to date is crucial. When a patch is released, don't wait. Update as soon as you can. For businesses, consider implementing network segmentation. This means dividing your network into smaller parts. If one part gets infected, it's harder for the malware to spread to the rest. Be cautious with peer-to-peer networks and decentralized systems. While they can offer great privacy, as we saw with BitMessage, they can also be exploited by bad actors. If you're using these, make sure you understand the risk. When it comes to ransomware demands, the general advice is not to pay. It doesn't guarantee you'll get your files back, and it encourages more attacks. Instead, report the incident to law enforcement. Keep an eye on your Bitcoin addresses if you use cryptocurrency. Chimera used Bitcoin for ransom payments, and their decryptor would check for payment. Be aware of any unusual activity in your crypto accounts. Lastly, stay informed. The cybersecurity landscape is always changing. New threats emerge, old ones evolve. Keep up with the latest news and adjust your security practices accordingly. Remember, folks, cybersecurity isn't a one-and-done deal. It's an ongoing process. But by staying vigilant and following these best practices, you can make life a lot harder for ransomware like Chimera. Let's take a step back and recap the wild ride we've been on with Chimera ransomware. It's been quite a journey, and I'm gonna break it down for you in plain English. Chimera burst onto the scene, targeting small and medium-sized German businesses. They threatened to publish victims' data online if they didn't pay up. They were leveraging BitMessage, a peer-to-peer messaging protocol, for their command and control communication. Late November 2015, researchers thought it might be inactive, but by early December it was back with a vengeance, now offering victims a chance to join their affiliate program. Talk about a twisted business model. In July 2016, we got a peek under Chimera's hood. Researchers uncovered how they were using BitMessage to distribute decryption keys to paid victims. Then, Chimera went dark. For about a year, from 2016 to 2017, it was believed to be inactive. But in 2017, the private keys for Chimera leaked. Researchers validated them, and suddenly, we had the tools to help victims decrypt their files without paying the ransom. Throughout it all, Chimera kept using BitMessage for communication. It's like they found a formula that worked and stuck with it. So there you have it, folks. A story of innovation, persistence, and evolution in the world of ransomware. It's a stark reminder of how these threats can adapt and come back stronger, even when we think we've got them beat. And here we are in 2024. It's been pretty quiet on the Chimera front. We haven't seen much action from them lately. But in this world of cybercrime, silence doesn't always mean the end. Who knows what's brewing in the shadows? Maybe Chimera's gone for good, or maybe they're evolving into something we haven't even imagined yet. There are articles in 2022 that report Chimera resurfacing. Now you might be thinking, didn't they leak the keys to this thing? How's it still kicking? Well, that's the thing about malware. It evolves. The bad guys learn. They adapt. They come back stronger. This is malware evolution in action, folks. They can always just create a new encryption cipher and start popping companies left and right. One thing's for sure, in this game, what comes next is anyone's guess.
In the quiet corners of the internet, storing millions of lines of code, is a realm known as PyPI, the Python Package Index. Picture it as a vast library, its shelves stretching endlessly, filled not with books, but with tiny parcels of code. These packages, as they're called, are the building blocks that programmers use to construct their digital creations, much like a child assembling a complex Lego set. PyPI is the heart of the Python ecosystem, a bustling marketplace where developers from around the globe share their work. It's a place of trust where one expects to find tools to make their programming life easier, not hidden dangers lurking in the shadows. But as with any system built on trust, there are those who seek to exploit it. This is where our story truly begins, with a company called Phylum and their prize software, an automated threat detection platform. Imagine, if you will, a tireless watchdog, its eyes never closing, always scanning the vast expanse of PyPI. This is Phylum's creation, programmed to sniff out the faintest smell of malicious intent among the millions of packages flowing through PyPI every day. On a crisp morning in December 2022, as the world was winding down for the holidays, this watchdog's ears perked up. It had caught the scent of something amiss, a package called Pyrologen that didn't quite fit the pattern of normal, benign code. Little did anyone know, this discovery would be the first thread in unraveling a complex hacking operation. As we delve deeper into this tale, we'll uncover the intricate methods used by these hackers and the equally sophisticated tools employed to thwart them. But for now, let us pause and appreciate the quiet heroism of Phylum's automated platform, a silent guardian in the night, ever watchful, protecting the vast digital commons of PyPI from those who would seek to corrupt it. Now, you might wonder, why is this such a big deal? Well, this is what we in the cybersecurity world call a supply chain attack. Imagine if someone tampered with ingredients at a food processing plant. Anyone who used those ingredients would unknowingly be serving contaminated food. In the digital world, it's similar. By sneaking malicious code into a trusted source like PyPI, hackers can spread their malware far and wide, infecting countless systems as unsuspecting developers incorporate the tainted code into their projects. The significance of this attack cannot be overstated. It's like a virus spreading through the very tools we use to build our digital world. And as our lives become increasingly intertwined with technology, the potential for harm grows exponentially. As the cybersecurity researchers behind Phylum huddled around their screens, poring over the details of Pyrologen, they couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Their intuition was right, a harbinger of more malicious packages lurking in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered in the days to come. The days following Christmas were far from peaceful for the team at Phylum. Their automated system, like a tireless watchdog, continued to bark warnings. On December 28th, it flagged another suspicious package easy timestamp. The next day, 2 more joined the list Discorder and Discord dev. As the year drew to a close on December 31st, the system raised alarms about 2 final packages, style.py and Python styles. In just over a week, Phylum had uncovered a total of 6 malicious packages hiding in plain sight on PyPI, each one a potential threat waiting to be downloaded by unsuspecting developers. The team couldn't help but wonder how many systems had already been compromised. Each of these packages were downloaded hundreds of times, and in total, these packages had been downloaded 940 times. That's 940 potential victims. 940 systems possibly infected with malware. But what exactly was this malware doing? The Phylum team discovered that these packages were installing 2 types of malicious software information stealers and rats. Information stealers, as the name suggests, are programs designed to gather and transmit sensitive data from an infected computer. This could include passwords, credit card numbers, or other personal information. Imagine a burglar rifling through your drawers, taking pictures of all your important documents. Rats, or remote access Trojans, are even more insidious. They give hackers a backdoor into infected systems, allowing them to control the computer remotely. It's like giving a stranger a spare key to your house, along with the ability to watch everything you do through hidden cameras. Both types of malware can cause severe damage. They can lead to identity theft, financial fraud, or even be used to launch further attacks from the infected computer. As the Phylum team pored over their findings, a chilling realization set in. This wasn't just a random act of cybercrime. The consistent pattern, the carefully chosen package names designed to look legitimate, all pointed to a coordinated attack. Someone, or some group, was deliberately targeting the Python community through one of its most trusted resources. The question now was, how deep did this rabbit hole go? And more importantly, how could they stop it before more developers fell victim to this elaborate scheme? As the cybersecurity researchers dug deeper into the malicious packages, they uncovered a complex and cunning attack strategy. At the heart of it all was a file called setup.py, which is typically used to install Python packages. But in this case, it was hiding something sinister. The code in setup.py was obfuscated, meaning it was deliberately written to be hard to understand. It's like if someone wrote a letter in a secret code. You know there's a message, but you can't read it without decoding it first. This obfuscation was the hackers' first line of defense against being discovered. Once the team cracked this code, they found that the malware operated using 4 main threads, or separate tasks that run simultaneously. Think of it like a team of burglars, each with a specific job. 1. The first thread was all about persistence. It made sure the malware stayed on the infected computer even after restarts. It did this by adding itself to the Windows startup folder, basically telling the computer, hey, run me every time you turn on. 2. The second thread was for communication. It regularly pinged a hidden website called an onion site to check in with the hackers. This is how the malware got its orders and reported back. 3. The third thread was a keystroke logger. This is exactly what it sounds like. It recorded every key pressed on the infected computer. Passwords, credit card numbers, private messages, nothing typed was safe. 4. The fourth and final thread was perhaps the most dangerous. It stole sensitive data from the infected computer. Cookies, small files websites use to remember you. Saved passwords, even cryptocurrency wallet information. All of it was bundled up and sent back to the hackers. But how did the malware send all this stolen data without being caught? This is where a familiar name you guys might be aware of, Cloudflare, comes in. Cloudflare is a legitimate service used by many websites for security and performance. The hackers cleverly abused a feature of this service called Cloudflare Tunnel. Normally, Cloudflare Tunnel is used to create secure connections between a website and Cloudflare's servers. But in this case, the hackers used it to create a secret tunnel from the infected computer to their own servers. This tunnel looked like normal web traffic, making it very hard for security systems to spot. It was like the hackers had found a way to use the Postal Service's own trucks to deliver stolen goods, hiding their criminal activity in plain sight. As the researchers unraveled these details, the true scope of the attack began to emerge. This wasn't just a simple piece of malware. It was a sophisticated operation designed to steal vast amounts of sensitive data while remaining undetected for as long as possible. The discovery left the team with a chilling question. How many other attacks like this might be out there, still hidden in the vast ecosystem of open-source software? As the researchers dug into the malware's inner workings, they uncovered a cunning exploit that hackers were using against Cloudflare Tunnel. This discovery would prove to be a turning point in understanding the sophistication of the attack. Cloudflare Tunnel is like building a private, fenced-off road from your office directly to Cloudflare's data centers, bypassing the public internet entirely. Normally, this technology is used to enhance security and performance for businesses. But in the hands of hackers, it became a powerful tool for evil. The attackers specifically abused a feature called Try Cloudflare. This feature allows users to create temporary tunnels without needing a Cloudflare account. It's meant to be a convenient way for developers to test their applications. But for the hackers, it became a way to hide their tracks. Here's how they did it. The malware would use Try Cloudflare to create a temporary, anonymous tunnel. This tunnel connected the infected computer directly to Cloudflare's servers. From there, the hackers could control the malware and steal data without ever revealing their true location. This method offered several benefits to the attackers. First, it used a legitimate program that supported on all major operating systems. This made the malware less likely to be flagged as suspicious. Second, the initial connection looked like normal HTTPS traffic to Cloudflare. This is the same type of connection your browser uses for secure websites, making it blend in with regular internet traffic. Third, the hackers could change how the malware behaved in real time without exposing their own infrastructure. They were like puppet masters pulling strings from behind an impenetrable curtain. Fourth, try Cloudflare is a free service. The attackers didn't need to pay for or maintain their own servers, making their operation cheaper and harder to trace. Finally, this method offered a high degree of anonymity. The traffic appeared to come from Cloudflare, a trusted company, rather than from the hackers themselves. As the researchers pieced this together, the true ingenuity of the attack became clear. The hackers had turned a security tool into a weapon, hiding their malicious activity behind the reputation of a trusted company. It was a sobering reminder of how creative and adaptable cybercriminals can be, always finding new ways to exploit the systems we rely on. As the summer of 2024 approached, the cybersecurity world was about to be shaken to its core. What had begun as a discovery of malicious packages on PyPI in December 2022 was about to reveal itself as just the tip of a massive iceberg. Cybersecurity firms released comprehensive reports that detailed how hackers were increasingly abusing Cloudflare tunnels to deliver malware. This wasn't just about the PyPI packages anymore. It was a widespread issue affecting numerous organizations across various sectors. The reports revealed advanced techniques that went beyond what anyone had initially suspected. These hackers weren't just using basic tricks. They were employing sophisticated methods to bypass security measures and maintain long-term access to compromised systems. Cloudflare Tunnel, a tool designed to enhance security, was being turned against its users. Hackers were using it to create hidden pathways into organizations' networks, bypassing firewalls and other security measures. It was like they had found a secret entrance that let them slip past all the guards unnoticed. The report showed that no industry was safe. Banks, manufacturing companies, tech firms, and even government agencies were all potential targets. Any organization using Cloudflare Tunnel could be at risk if they weren't aware of these new attack methods. As the cybersecurity community digested these reports, a sense of urgency swept through the industry. It was clear that this wasn't just another minor security flaw. This was a fundamental shift in how hackers operated, and it required an equally fundamental shift in how organizations approached their cybersecurity. The story that had begun in December 2022 had grown into something far larger and more ominous than anyone could have predicted. Cybersecurity researchers released a number of IOCs, or indicators of compromise. The focus now shifted to detection and mitigation strategies, much like a town reinforcing its defenses after a surprise attack. Experts recommended several key steps for organizations to protect themselves. First, they advised monitoring DNS queries for argotunnel.com subdomains. Think of this as keeping an eye out for suspicious visitors asking for directions to a specific neighborhood. Next, they suggested watching for outbound connections on port 7844, akin to noticing if someone in your house is repeatedly calling an unfamiliar number. Another crucial step was to set up alerts for command line arguments containing tunnel run -- token. This is like having an alarm that goes off if someone uses a specific secret phrase. Organizations were also advised to block or alert on file hashes matching Cloudflare tunnel releases, also known by its executable name, Cloudflared. which is similar to checking the ID of everyone entering a restricted area. For companies using Python, experts recommended considering restrictions or increased monitoring of Python installations. It's like keeping a closer eye on a door that you know has a faulty lock. Cloudflare, caught in the middle of this security storm, stated that they were actively disabling and taking down malicious tunnels as they discovered them. But the implications of this attack reached far beyond just Cloudflare or Python. It highlighted a growing concern in the world of software supply chain security. The idea that the very tools and packages developers trust could be weaponized against them is one to ponder. This isn't just about Cloudflare or PyPI. It's about the fundamental trust we place in the building blocks of the internet. The discovery of these malicious packages, starting with that first flag with malware packages being discovered, had opened a Pandora's box. We confront an uncomfortable truth. A vulnerability in one part can have far-reaching consequences for all. As we look back on the events that unfolded from December 22, 2022, we see a story that reads like a modern-day cybersecurity thriller. The automated system that flagged a suspicious package called Pyrologen on PyPI. Little did anyone know that this was just the tip of the iceberg. Over the next few days, more malicious packages were uncovered. On December 28, EasyTime Stamp was detected. The very next day, Discorder and Discord Dev joined the list. As the year came to a close on December 31, two more packages, StylePy and Python Styles, were identified as threats. In total, 6 malicious packages were discovered, each masquerading as legitimate software. These weren't just harmless bugs, they were sophisticated tools designed to steal information and give hackers remote access to infected computers. The total download count for these packages was alarming. 940 times these digital Trojan horses had been unknowingly invited into developer systems. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of this attack was its use of Cloudflare Tunnel, a legitimate service to bypass firewalls and remain hidden. It was as if the thieves had found a way to use the bank's own security vans to transport stolen goods. How do we maintain the openness and innovation that makes our internet so valuable, while also protecting against those who would exploit it? How do we verify the trustworthiness of every package, every line of code, hell, even free users, in a world where software is built on layers upon layers of other people's work? These are not easy questions to answer, but they are crucial ones. The events of those 2 weeks in December and January served as a wake-up call. Knowledge is of no value unless you put it into practice. The knowledge gained from this incident must now be put into practice, not just by cybersecurity experts, but by everyone.
This is a wild story about AI, hackers, and global cybersecurity. Let's start with a bombshell announcement from OpenAI. On February 15th, 2024, they dropped this little briefing. OpenAI has removed accounts used by state-sponsored threat groups from Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia that were abusing its artificial intelligence chatbot, ChatGPT. Now, I know what you're thinking. What the heck does that mean? Well, let me break it down for you in simple terms. ChatGPT is this super advanced AI chatbot that can answer questions, write code, and do all sorts of cool stuff. But here's the kicker. Some pretty nasty hacker groups, backed by big-time governments, were using it for not-so-nice things. One of these groups, called Forest Blizzard, fancy name, right, is linked to Russia. OpenAI caught them red-handed using ChatGPT to research military tech. We're talking satellites and radar systems. But that's not all. They were also using it to make their hacking operations smoother and more efficient. Now, you might be wondering, how does a chatbot help with hacking? Well, imagine you're trying to break into a house. ChatGPT is like having a really smart friend who can tell you which windows are easiest to open. or how to pick the lock without making noise. It doesn't do the actual break-in for you, but it sure makes planning a whole lot easier. We're talking about AI being used by state-sponsored hackers to potentially mess with military operations. It's like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, except it's happening right now, in real life. OpenAI isn't just sitting back and watching this happen. They're fighting back. They've shut down these hackers' accounts and are keeping a close eye on things. It's like a high-tech game of whack-a-mole, with OpenAI trying to stay one step ahead of these cyber bad guys. Are you worried? Should we all be worried? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And to answer that, we need to dig a little deeper into what these hackers were actually doing with ChatGPT and what it means for the future of cybersecurity. Let's zoom in on what Forest Blizzard, a Russian hacker group, was up to with ChatGPT. So, these guys weren't just asking ChatGPT to help them with some hacking. No, they were diving into some seriously advanced territory. The report tells us they were using it for scripting enhancements. Now, what does that mean? Well, imagine you're a hacker trying to break into a system. You've got your tools, your code, but it's not quite doing the job. That's where these scripting enhancements come in. It's like ChatGPT was their coding buddy, helping them tweak and improve their hacking scripts to make them more effective, harder to detect, and faster to execute. These hackers were also using ChatGPT to research satellite and radar technologies pertinent to military operations. We're not talking about looking up how TV satellites work here. This is serious, military-grade tech. Think about it. Satellites and radar are the eyes and ears of modern military operations. They're used for everything from communications to surveillance to guiding missiles. By using ChatGPT to research this stuff, Forest Blizzard wasn't just trying to hack computers. They were potentially gathering intel that could impact real-world military operation. Now, it's important to note that we don't know exactly what kind of information they were able to get, or how they might have used it. But the fact that they were even trying to use AI for this kind of research, that's a whole new ballgame in the world of cyber espionage. This shows us that AI isn't just a tool for defense and cybersecurity. In the hands of skilled hackers, it can be a powerful weapon for offense too. It's like giving a master thief a supercomputer to plan their heists. So what does Forest Blizzard's use of AI mean for the world of cyber warfare and military operations? First off, we need to understand that AI isn't just changing the game in cyberspace. It's potentially reshaping how countries gather intelligence and plan military operations in the real world. When Forest Blizzard used ChatGPT to research satellite and radar technologies, they weren't just looking up fun facts. If a nation-state actor can use AI to quickly gather and analyze information about these technologies, it could give them a serious edge in planning both cyber and conventional military operations. What we can say is that AI is enhancing these groups' capabilities in a big way. Threat actors use the large language models to enhance their strategic and operational capabilities. They're using it for reconnaissance, social engineering, and finding new ways to sneak past cybersecurity defenses. It's potentially opening up whole new avenues for attacks. As these groups get better at using AI, they might find ways to use it that we haven't even thought of yet. This is why OpenAI and other AI companies are taking this so seriously. They're in a constant race to stay one step ahead of the bad guys, trying to figure out how their tech might be misused before it actually happens. So, what we're seeing here with Forest Blizzard isn't just about one hacker group using a chatbot. It's a glimpse into the future of warfare, where AI could play a crucial role in both attack and defense strategies. And folks, that future is already here. Alright guys, let's dive into OpenAI's game plan here. They're not just sitting back and watching these state-sponsored hackers go to town with their AI. No, they're taking a stand, and it's all about transparency and teamwork. OpenAI isn't keeping this stuff under wraps. They've gone public with what they found, releasing a joint report with Microsoft on February 14th and 15th, 2024. That's a big deal. They're saying, "Hey world, here's what these bad actors are up to with our AI. It's like turning on the lights in a dark room full of hackers." Suddenly, everyone can see what's going on. But they're not stopping there. Apparently, OpenAI is implementing what they call a multi-pronged approach to fight back against this malicious AI use. They're attacking this problem from multiple angles. One of those angles is continuous monitoring. OpenAI says that they will continue to monitor and disrupt state-backed hackers using specialized monitoring tech, information from industry partners, and dedicated teams tasked with identifying suspicious usage patterns. Essentially, they're keeping their eyes peeled 247, using high-tech tools and working with other companies to spot these hackers. They're also being upfront about what these hackers are doing. In their report, they gave details on how each of the 5 state-sponsored groups, Forest Blizzard, Emerald Sleet, Crimson Sandstorm, Charcoal Typhoon, and Salmon Typhoon, were using ChatGPT. This kind of public transparency is crucial. It helps other companies and researchers understand the threat and potentially develop better defenses. OpenAI is also thinking long-term. They stated, "Understanding how the most sophisticated malicious actors seek to use our systems for harm gives us a signal into practices that may become more widespread in the future and allows us to continuously evolve our safeguards." In other words, they're using what they learned from these hackers to stay one step ahead and keep improving their security. It's a full-court press against AI-powered cyber threats, and they're not holding anything back. So, what do you think these guys were actually doing with the AI? Now, you might think they were using ChatGPT to create some kind of super malware or launch devastating cyber attacks. But here's the kicker. That's not what OpenAI and Microsoft found at all. In their joint report, they laid out some pretty interesting limitations on how these hackers were using AI. Let me break it down for you. First off, no significant or unique AI-enabled attacks were observed. That's right, folks. Despite all the hype and fear around AI, these state-backed groups weren't pulling off any groundbreaking attacks with it. At least, not yet. None of the observed cases involved the use of large language models for directly developing malware or complete custom exploitation tools. So these hackers weren't using AI to build new malware or hacking tools from scratch. So what were they doing? Well, actual coding assistance concerned lower-level tasks, such as requesting evasion tips, scripting, turning antivirus off, and generally the optimization of technical operations. In plain English, they were using AI for the small stuff, tweaking their existing tools, finding ways to slip past antivirus software, that kind of thing. The hackers were also using AI for reconnaissance, social engineering, evasion tactics, and generic information gathering. Basically, they were using it to do research, craft more convincing phishing emails, and collect information. Now, don't get me wrong. This stuff is still serious. These groups were using AI to make their existing operations smoother and more efficient. But it's a far cry from the doomsday scenarios some people imagine when they think about AI in the hands of hackers. It's like the difference between using a calculator to do your taxes faster versus inventing a whole new kind of math. These hackers were doing the former, not the latter. This is crucial information because it gives us a realistic picture of where AI capabilities in cyber attacks actually stand right now. It's not science fiction. It's more like hackers using a really advanced Google to help with their day-to-day operations. Remember, folks, this is based on what OpenAI and Microsoft observed. The tech world moves fast, and things could change. But for now, this is what we know about how state-sponsored hackers are actually using AI tools like ChatGPT. We're talking about some serious players here. State-sponsored threat actors with cool code names like Emerald Sleet, Crimson Sandstorm, Charcoal Typhoon, and Salmon Typhoon. Each of these groups had their own special way of using ChatGPT and other AI tools. Let's break it down. First up, we've got Emerald Sleet, linked to North Korea. The report tells us they were leveraging ChatGPT for researching North Korea and generating spear phishing content. That's right. They were using AI to craft more convincing phishing emails. But that's not all. They were also using it to understand vulnerabilities, including a nasty one called Felina, and troubleshoot web technologies. Basically, they were using AI as a research assistant and a writing tool for their scams. Next, we've got Crimson Sandstorm, tied to Iran. These folks were all about social engineering. The report says they engaged with ChatGPT for social engineering assistance, error troubleshooting, net development, and developing evasion techniques. They were using AI to help them trick people, fix their code, and find new ways to sneak past cybersecurity defenses. Then there's Charcoal Typhoon, one of the Chinese groups. These guys were really into tooling development. They interacted with ChatGPT to assist in tooling development, scripting, comprehending cybersecurity tools, and generating social engineering content. They were using AI to build better hacking tools, understand security software, and again, create convincing social engineering content. Last but not least, we've got Salmon Typhoon, another Chinese group. These folks were all about intelligence gathering. They employed large language models for exploratory inquiries on a wide range of topics, including sensitive information, high-profile individuals, and cybersecurity, to expand their intelligence gathering tools and evaluate the potential of new technologies for information sourcing. They were using AI like a super-powered search engine, looking into all sorts of sensitive topics. Now, here's the interesting part. While each group had its own focus, we can see some common threads. They were all using AI for things like research, social engineering, and improving their existing tools. None of them were using AI to directly create malware or launch attacks. Generally, the threat actors used the large language models to enhance their strategic and operational capabilities, including reconnaissance, social engineering, evasion tactics, and generic information gathering. These state-sponsored hacker groups are using AI in some pretty sophisticated ways, but it's more about enhancing their existing capabilities. It's a glimpse into the future of cyber warfare, and it's happening right now. I want you to peer into a crystal ball with me and look at where this AI-enhanced hacking thing might be headed. The UK's National Cybersecurity Centre dropped a warning that's got everyone curious. They said that AI tools are going to ramp up cybersecurity threats in the next couple of years. They're particularly worried about ransomware. You know, those nasty attacks where hackers lock up your data and demand a ransom. Now, we've got OpenAI and Microsoft weighing in. They've been keeping tabs on how state-sponsored hacker groups are using AI, and their findings are pretty interesting. These hackers are using AI to do better research, craft more convincing phishing emails, find new ways to slip past security and gather intel more efficiently. It's like they've got a super smart assistant helping them with their day job of being a hacker. Looking ahead, OpenAI says this gives them a heads up on what might become more common in the future. They stated, "Understanding how the most sophisticated malicious actors seek to use our systems for harm gives us a signal into practices that may become more widespread in the future and allows us to continuously evolve our safeguards." So, what's the takeaway here? The future of AI and cyber attacks isn't about creating new threats out of thin air. It's about making existing threats smarter, faster, and harder to detect. It's an arms race, folks, with hackers and defenders both trying to leverage AI to outmaneuver each other. You can bet both sides will find new ways to use it. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. OpenAI plans to fight back against these state-sponsored hackers. And not just sitting on their hands, they've got a game plan. OpenAI says they're going to keep a close eye on these state-backed hacker groups. They're not just going to ban them once and call it a day. Nope, they're in it for the long haul. It's a constant back-and-forth battle. OpenAI knows that this isn't a one-and-done deal. The hackers are always evolving, always coming up with new tricks. They're studying how the smartest hackers are trying to abuse their AI and using that knowledge to build better defenses for the future. It's like they're learning from the enemy to build a stronger fortress. That's OpenAI's battle plan against state-sponsored hackers. Constant monitoring, high-tech tools, teamwork with other companies, dedicated cyber detectives, and a commitment to keep learning and improving. Remember, this isn't some far-off future we're talking about. This is shaping the future of AI and cybersecurity as we speak. Stay tuned, because I'm sure I'll have more to talk about this very, very, very soon.